Dear God, I am humbled that you carefully consider my life. Even though I am only here on earth for a moment, you care deeply about that moment. When I really think about this, it humbles me. Who I am, that the God of the universe cares about me. Thank you for loving me. Today, show me how to consider others like you have considered me. In your mighty awesome name, amen.
Have some faith in Jesus Christ as your Lord.
Gotta have some faith.
You gotta have some faith in yourself, man.
Come on, have some faith.
Hi, my name is Christian, and welcome back to another episode of the Have Some Faith podcast. I hope y'all are doing fantastic today. I hope y'all are having a great day. Actually, it doesn't feel too bad out today. It's Florida, so it's always going to be hot, especially in this beautiful month of May that we are in. Just that lead up into summer, you know. Actually, wait, hold on. Yeah, May 11th. I'm a little confused on my months and days. It's okay. We all are. It's fine. That's okay. No, it's a beautiful day today, and it's an amazing Tuesday, and I have had a lot on my mind over this past weekend with the whole putting out the very first episode. If you are here from that one, thank you so much. To anybody that did listen to it or will listen to it in the future and then come to this episode, thank you. I really appreciate it. I definitely had a lot of different mixed feelings on the episode after I did it and uploaded it. And that the day it came out last Friday, I kind of listened back on it a couple different times, and I was like, wow. Am I cut out for this? Am I really is this really what I want to be doing? And I just had that little bit of doubt. And then I started getting this almost anxiety, oh my gosh, should I have done it? Who am I, to put something like this out there, talking about it, the person that I am, with the imperfections I have. And I'm going to have a podcast where I talk about faith and just it, all of this, all of it. And that's just kind of what I was thinking. And then, I had a conversation with a couple of my buddies, and they were giving me some, just their thoughts on the episode. And, my fiance, was giving me her thoughts on the episode. And it immediately kind of everything that I was, all the trouble that I was having in my mind about it, it just kind of melted away. And I was I listened to it again, and I was like, wow, you know what? No, this is, I'm proud of this. I'm proud of this thing that I was able to create and put out to the world. And so I immediately, started thinking, okay, so if I want to have this schedule of Monday and Fridays, 9 a.m. for the release, what do I, what do I want my next episode to be about? And, so I did a little bit more thinking, and then I kind of figured, maybe let's do Tuesdays and Fridays, because, a lot of people Monday, it's slog, you're getting back into work, your mental state isn't probably going to be there enough to really, have it in you to want to listen to somebody yap for 20 minutes, right? And I don't blame you, because I don't either. I listen to music all the time on my way to work, but especially Monday mornings, I got it going because I need to wake up for the work week, So I was thinking, you know what? Let's do Tuesdays and Fridays. Tuesdays and Fridays, 9 a.m. That'll be my episodes. And then I'm like, okay, Tuesday's coming up. What am I going to talk about? And I've been seeing this, kind of, I don't want to call it a trend, but I've been seeing this, thing go around, on TikTok and Instagram, and people talking about these, their anxieties, different forms of anxiety. And I specifically saw this one video, and I'm going to open TikTok really quick to kind of look back on it, but I'm going to turn my volume all the way down just in case, there's, copyrighted music, because that's something that we have to worry about when I'm airing out all this stuff onto the internet, right? So I don't need to be saying any of that. What's wrong with me? But I specifically saw this one post, and it was, the title of the video was "When the World Was Actually Cozy," and I was like, What do they mean by that? And I scrolled a little bit, and it's just a bunch of old pictures of like restaurants and places from like our childhood. Specifically, this is targeting the demographic of like Gen Z. So, like the 19 to like 28 year olds. That might cover Gen Z enough. I don't know like what, the generations cover, but I'm 25. So I know I'm Gen Z, and specifically targeting kids that were growing up in like the 2000s, right? So I started looking, and it's just all of these like old places like Panera and Starbucks and Olive Garden, and like, a lot of places that you would go to maybe like, on a summer day, you're 7 years old, right? And you're going out with your mom because she has to run some errands, and you go to the mall. And maybe you guys hit up Starbucks, and then maybe, you're walking around the mall for a little bit and you get hungry, so you hit up like a Cheesecake Factory or a Panera or anything. And I'm looking at these old pictures, right? Long story short, I'm looking at all of these old pictures, and I do realize what they're talking about. Places had such a different vibe to them than they do now. And to me, I think a lot of the problem, one of the main problems, I think, with our generation, Gen Z, maybe the generation above us, millennial, maybe them a little bit, but they didn't grow up with this stuff like we did, like basically put in our hands. Gen Z might be like the last generation that didn't, we weren't iPad babies and like iPad kids. It's 5 years old, we didn't have iPads. The technology just like wasn't as prevalent yet. That might be more like the generation below us. I don't even know their name. I don't really care. But we were like one of the last generations to really experience the creativity and the warmth that these, places of business would, try to bring people in with. And I do feel like like the good majority of the anxiety does come from technology. That could be blamed for a lot of things, and I could sound like the biggest hypocrite ever, because if I check my screen time, I know darn well I am on my phone way too much, worrying about stuff that doesn't concern me at all, way too much. A lot of the anxiety comes from our phones and how much information we are fed on a daily basis. It's bad. And it's something that we as human beings never should have had at our fingertips like that. There is a lot of good things with technology. Technology excelling at the rate that it has benefits, but it also has its consequences. And one of them is this overwhelming urge of anxiety, everybody constantly comparing and contrasting their lives. We kind of touched on this in the first episode, so not to drag it on too much. But I think another cause for, this overall kind of anxiety, depression filled world that we are living in now, where everything does seem more downtrodden than it ever has for us, has to do with these, things that we grew up with, as something as stupid as like a Mickey D's, you know what I mean? Having such a colorful past. You'd go there, they had the playground. It looked like there were French fries on the roof. You guys remember that? It was like the yellow little, like, supports, I guess, maybe is what it was, but they looked like French fries. If that wasn't the intent, that's what it always reminded me of. But you see what I'm saying? Like, you get that like mental image in your head, the red roof, the golden arches. I mean, it was just like all there. And a lot of these other restaurants and places of business did the same. And it's easy to look at things with rose-colored glasses, like, oh, things were just so much better when we were kids, and look at everything now. Every generation does it, but, I mean, we're seeing it because technology is as prevalent as it is. We are seeing it happen before our eyes in real time. This mass, make everything boring and gray thing that companies just love to be doing and have done over the last, I'd say probably like decade now, because you could still even probably go back to, 10, maybe a little bit more than 10 years ago. And it was when it was starting, but it wasn't as like bad as it is now. So you have everybody wrapped up in their phones, and you have everybody constantly worrying about things that either don't affect them or could possibly affect them depending on the severity of the situation, because we're constantly looking at these every single day. And then you have all of these big corporations going, you know what would help with everybody's, like constant in their head and depression, anxiety, mood swings, all of that. Let's just turn all of our places of business and all of these once colorful things that would draw people in with just gray boxes, because that'll make everybody's drive and commute to work so much better. Just it's just the environment that we live in now, and as menial as it might sound, is that a word, menial? Like as minimal as it like might sound, and as stupid as it might sound, like, oh, this guy's talking about the way that buildings look. Yeah, because that TikTok video that I saw was accurate the more and more that I looked at it. I'm like, yeah, these places, like, you walk into them and you don't get that same warm, inviting tone that you do anymore. And I even saw comments of people talking about that very thing, like, watch these places of business, if they were to go back to the way that their places and looked, watch the amount of like anxiety probably fade from a lot of people. And I even thought that was like, really, like, that does sound a little like over dramatic, don't you think? But I'm just like, maybe, like, what would it hurt for McDonald's, like, as like I said, a place like McDonald's, to go back to the way that it used to look before? What is the benefit to having a gray box sitting in a parking lot versus a nice, bright and colorful one to maybe like warm up the environment naturally, so that, that's not all we're looking at every single day? If we are going to live in this culture of excess and consumerism and all of that, at the very least, why not make the stuff look presentable and nice to look at? If it's going to be shoved down our throats anyway and shoved in our faces constantly, why not at least make them look decent to look at? So that got me thinking about a few different things. I'm like, okay, so a good topic would be anxiety. Another good topic would be like depression. I'm not too well versed on either one of those topics, psychoactively, from a psychiatrist perspective. I can't give advice on that. But one thing I did think about was, we do have the option to, revert back to all of these old ways and make everything look like it did when we were kids. Or I think the more simple, thing would be to just try and, trust in God just a little bit more with a lot of our problems, because it is so easy to turn to worldly things and worldly, just going places and seeing all these things and being like, oh, well, if the world looked not gray and boring, then I'd be a lot happier. Well, would we? And that's kind of like what got me thinking a little bit, is like, would genuinely, like, if McDonald's tomorrow said, we're reverting back to all of our restaurants, and guess what? We're bringing the clown back. That's going to make everybody happy, right? Maybe it would. But there's a part of me that would love for that to be the case, but I don't think so. We have come so far away from all of that simply bringing back childhood nostalgia, I don't know if that would be enough. What I do try to implement in my life more and more recently as being enough is God. I mean, it sounds like a cliche answer, right? I'm a podcast that's trying to build myself up on this basis of faith. So of course my answer is going to be God, right? But I have no other doubt in my mind that the farther we stray from God, the more anxiety we have built up in our, in our brains, and the more that we worry about things and worry about the future and try to figure things out. If we try to figure things out without God, there's I don't believe there's much chance for us. You can't, if you even have a tiny like semblance of knowing God in your heart and in your head, and knowing that he exists and understanding what Christ did for us, for our sin, and then not relying on him to take all of the anxiety away and take all of the burden that we have that feels like it's weighing our shoulders down with a 1,000-pound boulder, then there is none, that there is no hope for the world or for us as human beings. There's nothing else to live for. He was here before us, and he created everything that we see, all of the things that we can go out in the world and see and be disappointed in. That's just it. We go out in the world and we're disappointed, and we're disappointed. But if we look past the the McDonald's and we look past the Panera, I'm convincing myself in real time, because originally when I was thinking about the video, I'm like, I might just kind of like rant and riff off of like how boring everything looks now, and boo consumerism, boo. That was like where I was originally coming from with this. But now I'm talking myself up genuinely with, if we just look past the McDonald's and look past the Panera and go, oh, maybe it's not them looking not like they did when we were kids that's messing us up. Maybe it's not the phones in our hands messing us up so much. It's that stuff all together taking us away from God. It's not the stuff being the way it is now. Technology is going to advance whether we like it or not. That's inevitable. Clearly, it has been for the past 20 years. Gen Z being as old as we are now, I was born in 2001. The technology was already like going into, the 2000s, Y2K, all of that. It was already like, rapidly moving. And then at the end of the 2000s, we get iPhones. And then in the early, 2010s, we have, VR headsets and all of this other crazy technology that we're like, whoa, this is kind of like futuristic. And then it's like we blinked and it was just boom, 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 boom. And now we're like so far ahead with AI and all of this stuff. And we're like, wait a minute. I remember iPhones coming out and now we're here. What's going on? It's, at the end of the day, all it really is for us is a distraction, because there is so much messed up stuff going on in the world right now that it's easy to try to distract ourselves with TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I still call it Twitter because I don't care. It's so easy to distract ourselves with worldly things like that we don't ever use that same device. Once again, something I kind of touched on in the first episode. I don't want to repeat myself and come across like I'm just saying the same thing over and over. But the same devices that we're using to distract ourselves from the world have a Bible on them, and we're not using that to open God's word and go, wait a minute, maybe the answers for all of my problems might be in here. And I'm not one of those like naive Christians that will just think, oh, is the second you open the Bible, your life will just be everything will be fixed and you'll be good to go. That's not how it works. It's going to take a lot. God isn't a genie. He doesn't just magically fix things for us and tell us, hey, you're good. You didn't do any of the work, but you needed to be fixed. So here you go. You're good now. Have fun. If he did that, that would be directly against our free will. God only helps the people who want help already. He will help you. You just have to kick things in gear first. And just like that Carrie Underwood song, he will grab the wheel and steer you in the right direction. You have to put forth the effort before he steers you in the direction that you supposedly want to go in. You know what I'm saying? So all that being said, with all of this, I'm realizing more and more that we really do just need to lock in. We need we need to lock in biblically. We need a massive like resurgence of God and of faith in this nation, and we're seeing it. Like I genuinely think that this generation that's coming up behind Gen Z and also Gen Z, we really are like there is this resurgence that I'm seeing more so than I ever have before. And it really is impressive. We're seeing a lot more Christian artists top the charts. We're seeing a lot more Christian content creators come to the forefront and go, hey, this is really the only way to live a fruitful life. And people not pushing back on it as much. You're always going to have pushback with it, but it really is like that there is this, change happening that I can see, and it warms my heart. But it's not going to be instantaneous, and it's not going to be everybody. I would love it to be everybody, but at the end of the day, we can't force people to believe whatever we do. We can't be those crazy Christians standing on the street corner saying, if you don't repent, you'll burn in hell. That's not going to do anything but show people that already aren't in the circle of Christianity. It's not a circle, you know what I'm saying? That aren't already in Christianity. Oh my gosh, that's awful. That's like an awful way to put it. That looks more like a cult than anything else. We're not a cult. Some people treat it like it, though, and that is the problem, I think, more than any other thing, is we really just need to put all of our faith in God if we want to curb any kind of anxiety or depression that we might have. It's not going to be worldly things. It might seem like it could be. You might be able to unbox a new iPhone and be happy for a little bit and be like, oh, this new piece of tech, that's really cool. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that we can't have possessions, but it does say to not put anything above God, from what I remember and from what I know of the Bible. You can be rich, you can have possessions, as long as they don't come before Christ, and you can't take them when you leave anyway. So what's the point of like hoarding all of this stuff and being in such a consumerism culture that like we put them before our divine creator? That's crazy. That's so wild to me, but we all do it. I do it. We all have, because God isn't a tangible thing that we can hold. So it's easy to just have a phone or have video games or movies or music to put before anything, because that's all stuff that we can see, touch, and hear. And that's just where it comes from. Having faith in something that you can't see, touch, or hear is hard. I'm seeing it more and more that's proving to be an easier thing for a lot of people, though. So I really hope that we start, like really just locking in with it, and we will be much better off for it. We will live much prosperous lives and much fruitful lives for it. I think that's pretty much it for all I had to say with this episode. Like I said, in the first one, I do want to keep these really like kind of short, sweet, and to the point. And I thought the idea for this one might be pretty good. I hope it was entertaining enough anyway. I really do. If you are here from the first episode or you're just tuning into this one, I really appreciate you for listening. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So once again, thank you. I love all y'all dearly. And remember, have some faith.